Hello, fellow AI art enthusiasts. My name is Thane, and in this video I wanted to take a look at anti-prompts. Translation being, trying to contradict things or make the results of your prompts purposefully ugly. Let's see together how well Midjourney handles these. The prompts I have used for this video are a bit longer than my usual style. So one of the things I have been noticing is that the more words you have, Midjourney may not listen to all of them. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I have yet again chosen 5 things to prompt for this video. Basically, just the phrase to make everything ugly or contradictory in a landscape aspect ratio. And then 4 prompts to combine that phrase with forgotten civilization portrait, luxury spaceship interior, biomechanical fashion editorial, and fever dream landscape. Well, even these included more words than I typically use in my prompts, but let's just see what happens. The goal was again to include as many different types of subjects as possible. So without further explanations, let's get to the prompts and the experiment and the results. And I will summarize my findings at the end of the video as usual. Blurry and poorly framed photo. These look like accidental or rushed shots, blurred, off-center, and oddly composed. They feel unintentional, with a raw, candid quality that breaks traditional photo rules. These results hit the mark. Each set feels off-kilter in framing, with soft focus and visual noise that mimic rushed or unstable shots. Despite the distinct subjects, there's a consistent sense of motion, disorientation, and imperfection that ties them all together. Ugly composition, no rule of thirds. I don't think these avoid the rule of thirds. It's an excellent example of Midjourney recognizing some of the words of the prompt and going with that. So instead of no rule of thirds, we get rule of thirds. And ugly composition is possibly replaced with just composition, and maybe just an image of something that's traditionally not that beautiful. There doesn't seem to be anything ugly with these. But they're not exactly the prettiest images. Just kind of ordinary. And the rule of thirds does come through with some of the images, especially some of the fever dream landscapes. So, to get a true impact, I guess I should have experimented with --numder. Overexposed, with washed out colors. These match the prompt nicely. The scenes feel overly bright, with highlights pushed too far and colors that look faded or bleached. There's a consistent softness and loss of contrast that sells the overexposed, washed out look. Most of these follow the prompt well. There's a noticeable softness, lowered contrast, and pastel or sun-bleached color palette throughout. A few images, especially in the luxury spaceship and fashion sets, lean a bit too polished or saturated, but overall the visuals maintain a convincing overexposed, washed-out look across the themes. Underexposed, barely visible. These lean more cinematic than truly underexposed. While there's low lighting and heavy shadows, most details are still clearly visible. The mood fits the idea, but they're more moody and stylized than genuinely hard to see. These mostly miss the mark. Lighting is moody but still clear, and details are well defined across all sets. A few images lean darker, especially in the interiors and portraits, but nothing feels truly underexposed or hard to see. They look stylized rather than barely visible. Flat lighting, no contrast. These mostly miss the target. While some scenes have neutral tones, there's still noticeable contrast, directional lighting, and mood. The lighting isn't truly flat, it still shapes the space and subjects, especially in the top left and bottom left images. They feel cinematic, not flat or lifeless. Most of these don't reflect flat lighting or lack of contrast. There's dramatic shadowing, directional light, and strong separation between light and dark areas, especially in the portraits and fashion shots. Only a few of the spaceship interiors and landscapes come close, with more even lighting and muted depth. Overall, too dynamic for the prompt. Random lighting sources, no shadows. Most show clear, directional lighting and strong shadows. Only the bottom right fits, random lights, minimal shadow logic. The rest miss the mark. Most images show controlled, realistic lighting with consistent shadow placement, which contradicts the prompt. The fashion and architecture sets especially rely on dramatic contrast and clear light sources. Only a few from the Fever Dream landscape set approach the intended look, with scattered, colored lights and minimal shadow logic. Overall, the results are too coherent and cinematic to feel truly random or shadowless. Messy background with no focal point. This matches the prompt quite well. The scenes are cluttered, visually noisy, and lack a clear subject for the eye to settle on. Some areas flirt with structure, but overall the compositions feel chaotic and directionless, just as intended. Some sets capture the chaotic feel well, especially the portraits and landscapes, where visual noise dominates. But others, like the fashion and spaceship interiors, still have strong subjects and structured layout. Overall, the result is mixed. Part successful clutter, part too clean or centered to fully match the prompt. Unbalanced visual weight. Not exactly what I would have imagined this to result in. Most of the images have a kind of a balancing act going on that could not be called unbalanced. I think it's just one of those concepts again where Midjourney struggles to picture anything but balance and weight. Some sets reflect the idea well, especially the towering portraits and surreal landscapes, where scale and shape create tension. But others, like the interiors and fashion shots, feel too balanced or symmetrical. The overall impact is mixed. Parts succeed visually, but many still look composed and stable. Too much negative space in all the wrong places. These match the prompt well. Subjects feel lost in vast, empty surroundings, with awkward spacing that pulls focus away. The negative space dominates in a way that feels unbalanced and intentional, visually striking but compositionally wrong. This batch is mixed. A few, like the portraits and fashion shots, are too centered and composed to feel off. Others, especially the landscapes and some architectural scenes, do show awkward spacing, with small subjects dwarfed by emptiness. There's some success, but not consistent across all sets. Everything is slightly off-center. These images appear clean and well composed, with subjects placed neatly in the center, or close enough to feel intentional. Despite the prompt, there's no real sense of imbalance or tension. The framing feels deliberate, visually stable throughout. Despite the prompt, most of these are strongly centered or symmetrically composed. Subjects feel purposefully placed, with little of the subtle imbalance you'd expect from being just off-center. Visually polished, but too precise to match the intended off-kilter feel. Unusable user interface for a futuristic app. These look sleek and modern, but not truly unusable. The layouts are visually dense, but still follow common UI patterns. Buttons, graphs, and controls are cleanly arranged. They feel more like functional dashboards than broken or confusing interfaces. These better match the prompt than the previous set. Many of the interfaces look overly complex, cluttered or stylistically prioritized over usability, like cryptic layouts, overloaded panels, or minimal context for controls. Still visually striking, but often impractical or confusing to actually use, which fits the idea well. Terrible product design, no ergonomics. These definitely lean into the concept. The objects look stylish but clearly uncomfortable or impractical, especially the chair and wooden mouse. Form is prioritized over function, resulting in products that may catch the eye, but would be frustrating to use. These images capture the idea well, designs that look futuristic or conceptually striking but clearly ignore comfort or usability. The fashion pieces, interiors, and tech elements all seem physically awkward or impractical, reinforcing the form over function critique. Clothing that doesn't fit and makes no sense. A few images clearly capture the prompt, like the bloated suit or chaotic clothing piles, but many lean more into avant-garde or oversized fashion trends. While some outfits look awkward or impractical, most still feel intentional and styled. The set overall lacks the true absurdity or dysfunction that would fully match the idea of clothing that doesn't fit and makes no sense. This batch does a better job embracing the absurd. Several outfits are wildly impractical, stacked, oversized, or seemingly assembled from unrelated garments. The overall look is chaotic and illogical, fitting the prompt much more directly than the last set. A few still drift towards stylized fashion, but most images hit the mark. Architecture that is completely impractical. These definitely lean into the absurd. From teetering stacks of boxy homes to gravity-defying curves and non-functional facades, the structures mock usability. None of them look livable or safe, and that's exactly the point. The chaos here feels intentional and spot on. These visuals do a good job leaning into the idea of impractical architecture. Many of the buildings are either overly ornate, structurally bizarre, or clearly not designed with usability in mind, like towering stacks, floating walkways, and highly stylized interiors. The mix with forgotten civilizations and fantasy elements adds to that sense of form over function. They look great, but you'd probably never want to actually live or work in any of them. Unappealing furniture that hurts to sit on. These definitely look like chairs you'd admire from a distance but never want to actually use. Some are overly bulky, others look oddly shaped or made from harsh materials like raw wood or strange upholstery. They hit the visual cue of design over comfort pretty well. Stylized, maybe even sculptural, but clearly not built for relaxing. These definitely lean into the not meant for comfort vibe. Some are ornate and decaying, others look futuristic but rigid, and a few just seem totally out of place. Like they're sculptural props dropped into odd landscapes. They're visually striking, sure, but most of them look like you'd regret sitting down for more than 5 seconds. Unreadable book cover with chaotic typography. These absolutely deliver on the visual noise. There's a bold mix of oversized letters, distorted layouts, and overlapping textures that make it nearly impossible to focus on any one element, let alone read something clearly. It feels like a deliberate overload, and it definitely captures the kind of chaos that would turn a book cover into more of an abstract statement than anything functional. These do a solid job blending chaotic type with visual overload. Most of the compositions are dense with overlapping fonts and patterns, making them hard to read at a glance, which fits the goal. The styles shift a bit, some lean more textured or abstract, while others integrate elements like faces or figures, but the unifying theme of visual confusion stays intact. It's disorder by design. Confusing road signs that lead nowhere. These hit the mark well. The signs are contradictory, excessive, or just plain strange, creating visual noise that makes decision-making impossible. Whether it's arrows pointing in every direction, symbols stacked in chaos, or roads leading to empty landscapes, they all capture the idea of guidance gone wrong. Some scenes are more surreal, some more realistic, but the confusion is consistent. This set captures the concept in varied and playful ways. The signs are often contradictory or nonsensical, scattered across surreal and desolate environments. Some setups feel oddly ceremonial, like signage placed with intention but without purpose. The fusion with other themes, futuristic interiors, fashion or dreamlike landscapes, adds to the disorientation, making it feel like guidance is promised but never delivered. Nonsensical control panel for an alien ship. These control panels definitely feel chaotic and overloaded, but not in an alien way. They look more like they belong in a retro power station or a Cold War-era sub, lots of industrial switches, chunky dials, and outdated screens. The vibe is more vintage human tech than something extraterrestrial or futuristic. This set leans more into the alien territory than the last batch, especially in the biomechanical and fever dream sections. Those bring a strange, otherworldly vibe. But overall, many of the panels still echo retro human tech, with bulky switches, industrial layouts, and familiar buttons. Some do push into surreal or nonsensical territory, but a lot of it still feels more vintage sci-fi than truly alien. A website from 2040, designed in MS Paint. These scenes absolutely nail the MS Paint aesthetic with bold outlines, vivid color blocking, and retro pixel art charm. But instead of evoking a website layout, they feel more like stylized sci-fi postcards, or comic panels from a 2040 art book. Visually fun, just not very web-like. These have the right colors and flattened digital look you might expect from something made in MS Paint, and there's a playful, retro-futuristic vibe running through them. But visually, they lean more toward comic book panels or stylized concept art than anything that feels like a website. They're fun and polished, just not particularly web-like. Unappetizing food styling for a gourmet dish. These dishes look more elegant than off-putting. The plating is polished and colorful, with a high-end aesthetic that doesn't quite align with the idea of something unappetizing. While the arrangements might lean a little fussy or overly intricate, they still come across as visually appealing and intentionally styled. These dishes still look quite polished and imaginative. Even when they're styled with surreal elements or unusual garnishes, the presentation leans more toward creative fine dining than truly unappetizing. Some compositions may feel a bit over the top or theatrical, but they don't evoke discomfort. They mostly feel like ambitious art-food hybrids, rather than something that turns you off. Cheerful horror movie poster. These posters hit a weirdly fun balance. Creepy faces, jump scare poses, and eerie lighting all show up, but they're paired with bright candy colors, cartoonish styles, or oddly enthusiastic expressions. The result doesn't feel quite scary, or quite joyful, just wildly energetic and unsettling in the best way. This one leans hard into the contradiction. You've got smiling faces, vibrant sets, candy-colored landscapes, but they're paired with eerie settings, twisted fashion, or surreal backdrops that feel just a little wrong. It's like everything's trying too hard to be cheerful, and that tension makes it work as a strange kind of horror. Romantic moment with hostile body language. This captures the tension well. Each moment feels like it's teetering between affection and argument. The settings are soft and romantic, but the body language tells a different story: distant postures, clenched jaws, guarded eyes. It feels like a quiet standoff dressed in date-night lighting. These are beautifully composed scenes with a strange emotional split. Settings and poses suggest love, but there's tension simmering underneath. Some figures lean in, but their expressions or posture say otherwise. Rigid backs, clenched hands, or unsmiling faces. It's romance laced with unease, where affection feels like a challenge rather than comfort. Child's birthday party with noir lighting. There's something oddly gripping about these scenes. They feel like a birthday party caught mid-dream or mid-investigation. The noir lighting adds a dramatic weight, with deep shadows and moody highlights turning innocent moments into something more cinematic. It's festive, yes, but with a hint of mystery lurking just outside the frame. This set leans even further into the surreal. The noir lighting casts long shadows and sharp contrasts, making the birthday scenes feel eerie and cinematic, like something out of a dream or a mystery film. Some settings are whimsical, others unsettling, but all feel like there's a story just under the surface, waiting to unfold. Tragic funeral in bright pastel colors. These images strike a surreal emotional chord, deeply somber scenes wrapped in soft, candy-colored palettes. The bright pastels don't hide the grief, but highlight it, creating a contrast that makes the sadness feel even more poignant. It's a strange, dreamlike tension between beauty and loss. These continue the surreal tone beautifully. The pastel palette softens the mood, but there's an unmistakable melancholy beneath the surface. From alien cathedrals to floral-clad mourners, each image leans into the contrast between whimsical color and solemn subject. It's visually disarming, grief dressed in bubblegum hues. Relaxing spa scene with panic and urgency. These strike a perfect balance between calm and chaos. The spa settings are serene, lush plants, candles, steam, but each scene simmers with underlying tension, startled expressions, structural mayhem, or guests in obvious distress. It's like relaxation is trying its best while disaster knocks at the door. These images capture a range of peaceful, atmospheric spa environments, from ancient ruins to futuristic retreats and dreamy pastel worlds. While visually striking and cohesive, they miss the intended tension. Everything feels serene and composed, with no real signs of panic or urgency disrupting the calm. Happy people in a war zone, smiling. These actually strike a compelling balance. The contrast between the devastation around and the calm or smiling expressions doesn't feel out of place. It suggests relief, resilience, or the moment just after chaos ends. There's a strange hopefulness here, like people starting to breathe again after surviving something unthinkable. This set really leans into that emotional duality, like celebration in the aftermath of struggle. The expressions feel genuine, not forced, like people who found connection and relief in the middle of chaos. It's less war zone absurdity and more resilient humanity. Definitely believable if the context is survival, reunion, or a long-awaited ceasefire. Crying clowns in a corporate meeting room. This one nails the surreal satire vibe. The clash of absurd costumes with sterile corporate settings makes it hit hard, like a visual metaphor for workplace despair wrapped in dark comedy. The emotion is oddly relatable too. It's ridiculous, but not too far from reality. This set leans way more into the surreal dystopia angle. Some feel almost too polished, like a luxury fever dream for broken souls in wigs and grease paint. That one with the massive clown portrait looming over the boardroom. Absolutely haunting. It's corporate grief with performance art energy. Wedding ceremony with nobody looking at each other. The images mostly show typical weddings with couples and guests looking at each other. A few glances are averted, but overall, they don't reflect the intended disconnection. Visually strong, but not conceptually accurate. Most images still show people facing each other, or guests looking toward the ceremony. A few, like the biomechanical editorial shots, partially match the prompt, but overall, the concept of nobody looking at each other is not consistently represented. Visually stunning, but not prompt accurate. Celebration with no joy. Most images convey the contrast between festive settings and a lack of visible joy, especially the birthday scene and solitary confetti shots. However, the group celebration in the bottom right breaks the prompt by showing clear happiness and enthusiasm. These images largely match the celebration with no joy prompt. While environments suggest festivities, like balloons, costumes, and parade-like scenes, the expressions and atmosphere feel emotionally flat, detached, or somber. Serene landscape with screaming people. The landscapes are undeniably serene, soft lighting, natural harmony, and tranquil settings dominate. However, the screaming people aspect is mostly missing or very understated. If present, their expressions are not clearly panicked or audible in tone. The serene landscapes are well represented across all themes. Lush scenery, balanced composition, and calming palettes are consistent. However, very few people appear to be screaming. Most are calmly walking or standing, making the screaming people element largely absent or too subtle to register clearly. Perspective doesn't make sense. Only two images clearly match the prompt, one with extreme distortion, and one inverted. The others have unusual but plausible perspective or optical effects, so the overall accuracy is mixed. Most images present coherent, plausible perspectives, especially in the civilization and spaceship themes. Only a few, mainly those influenced by fever dream or surreal editorial aesthetics, show odd or contradictory spatial logic. Overall, the set rarely breaks perspective enough to fully match the prompt. Impossible physics, floating shadows. This set matches the prompt well. All four images depict physically impossible or surreal conditions, floating objects, disconnected or misaligned shadows, and gravity-defying scenes, with particular success in the bottom right image, where both physics and shadows are clearly defied. These images generally match the impossible physics theme well. Floating rocks, fragmented architecture, and people suspended in midair feature prominently. However, floating shadows is less consistently represented. While some images explore dramatic or surreal lighting, few clearly depict shadows that are physically detached or behaving impossibly. Faces that keep folding into themselves. These images strongly match the prompt. The origami-style faces exhibit continuous, recursive folds and distortions, effectively capturing the idea of internal collapse or self-layering. The repetition and depth in the folds imply an ongoing transformation, aligning well with the concept of keep folding. The images largely succeed in depicting the prompt, particularly through layered, sculptural, or geometric designs. The forgotten civilization and biomechanical fashion variants are the strongest, with clear visual recursion or fragmentation. A few, especially in the luxury spaceship and fever dream sets, lean more towards stylization or surreal composition than literal folding. Objects phasing through each other. A carefully arranged collection of geometric objects made from wood, metal, stone, and fabric. They appear to balance, float, or interact in visually intriguing ways, but remain bound by the rules of real-world physics. While elegant and sculptural, there is no clear indication of any phasing or interpenetration between the materials. Most images in this set depict surreal or futuristic environments with striking visual design, but few truly illustrate objects phasing through each other. Several faces and forms are stylized or layered, and some textures blend intriguingly, yet they lean more toward artistic abstraction or sculptural fusion than actual phasing. Overall, the visual style is captivating, but the literal interpretation of the prompt is weak across all variations. Scene that loops onto itself recursively. Only one image, the bottom right, clearly portrays recursive looping, using fractal-like repetition that visually embodies the prompt. The others show arches, portals, or tunnels that suggest depth or repetition, but they lack the actual recursive structure implied. Overall, the set is visually cohesive but only partially fulfills the concept of a scene looping onto itself recursively. Most images evoke repetition, symmetry, or looping shapes, but only a few hint at actual recursion. The closest match is the spaceship corridor scene, second row, second and third from left, which visually recedes in a tunnel-like loop. However, many images emphasize texture or surreal environments without clearly depicting a scene that loops back onto itself. Overall, it's a loose interpretation of the prompt. Reflections that don't match the scene. A collection of visually coherent images where reflections mirror their environments accurately. Despite the prompt, there are no clear mismatches between the scenes and their reflections. The concept of discordant, or impossible reflections, is not conveyed here. These images mostly feature visually cohesive reflections that align well with the elements above them, maintaining realistic light, color, and structure continuity. A few compositions, such as the double-faced or stylized portrait, reflections, offer slight surreal twists but still echo the primary subject matter too closely to truly mismatch. Overall, they do not convincingly fulfill the prompt of reflections that don't match the scene. Time of day constantly changing. These images show attempts to contrast different times of day using visual cues like lighting shifts, clocks, and sky tones. However, none of them convincingly depict continuous or recursive transitions between times. Rather, they freeze moments suggestive of different times in separate sections. As a result, the concept of constantly changing is implied but not actively or clearly illustrated. Most of these images hint at different times of day through varied lighting and skies, especially within the fever dream and forgotten civilization variants. However, they don't visually express constant temporal transitions. Each frame is static, capturing a single moment rather than depicting change over time. The concept is loosely suggested, but not effectively illustrated across the set. Gravity only works on certain items. This set illustrates the prompt quite effectively. In each image, some objects clearly defy gravity while others obey it. Like floating fabric or wooden items contrasted against grounded ones, or a tilted draw grid, where only select items remain suspended. The concept is visually distinct and consistently applied across all four compositions. These images only partially reflect the prompt. Some visuals depict floating people or rocks, especially in the fashion and fever dream landscapes, suggesting selective gravity. However, many images, particularly in the Forgotten Civilization and spaceship interiors, lack clear signs of altered gravity, making the overall match inconsistent. Clouds inside buildings, no windows. This set only partially matches the prompt. While the clouds indoors are well depicted and surreal, most of the buildings clearly have large windows or open facades, directly contradicting the no windows part. The imagery is strong, but the prompt is not accurately fulfilled due to this consistent architectural oversight. These images capture the surreal idea of the prompt well, with dense cloud formations filling architectural interiors. However, nearly all scenes include large windows, glass walls, or open facades, which directly contradicts the no windows part of the prompt. While visually compelling, the set misses full accuracy due to the persistent presence of visible exterior openings. Staircase that ends in the sky, but goes nowhere. These images match the prompt very accurately. Each staircase clearly rises into the sky or clouds, ending abruptly without connecting to any destination or structure, visually emphasizing the goes nowhere concept. The surreal, dreamlike atmosphere across all images further strengthens the sense of disconnection and absurdity implied by the prompt. Most images match the prompt well, especially in the Forgotten Civilization and Fever Dream sets, showing staircases rising into the sky with no clear destination. The luxury spaceship interiors don't fit, as their stairs feel functional and enclosed. Overall, the concept is captured best in open, surreal settings. Hyperreal cartoon. These images strongly match the prompt. They blend exaggerated cartoonish features with detailed, realistic textures and lighting, especially in character design and environments. The overall style is consistent with the hyperreal cartoon aesthetic, vivid, quirky, and slightly surreal. These images match the prompt well. They feature exaggerated characters and vibrant, surreal environments with highly detailed textures and lighting that give a realistic depth. The fusion with the additional prompt still retains a strong stylized cartoon quality, making the overall interpretation consistent and visually compelling. Photorealistic glitch art. This matches the prompt very well. Each image features high detail, realistic rendering disrupted by digital artifacts like color shifts, pixelation, and data moshing effects. The contrast between realism and distortion creates a striking glitch aesthetic consistent with the prompt. This set matches the prompt well. The base imagery is rendered with realistic lighting and detail, while glitch effects like pixelation, data smearing, and visual fragmentation are clearly present, especially in the fashion, landscape, and sculpture subjects. Some images are more stylized, especially in the Fever Dream set, but the overall balance between realism and glitch is consistent with the prompt. Minimalism with extreme complexity. These match the prompt very well. Each scene features sparse, clean environments contrasted with one strikingly intricate element, like tangled fibers, recursive geometry, or detailed natural forms. The tension between space and detail successfully delivers both aesthetic poles of the prompt. These images mostly match the prompt. Many compositions balance clean, spacious backgrounds with intricate subjects, like detailed faces, ornate fashion, or surreal structures. A few lean more into one side, like some portraits and landscapes lack minimal surroundings, but overall the contrast is present and aligns well with the intent. Vibrant monotone colors. These images showcase selective, high-intensity color use that draws strong visual contrast against neutral or muted surroundings. Each scene highlights one or two bold hues, orange, teal, purple, or red, without overwhelming the composition with full-spectrum color. The result is a striking and cohesive aesthetic that feels focused and intentional. These images strongly emphasize single dominant color palettes, such as pink, orange, cyan, or magenta, applied in bold, saturated tones across the scenes. Each composition maintains chromatic consistency, creating a cohesive visual identity within its color family while still feeling dynamic. The styling across categories is consistent, making the overall effect visually striking and unified. A detailed abstract. These images exhibit high intricacy with layered textures, rich color variation, and complex compositions. Each piece is visually dense and filled with fine elements, like veining, cellular patterns, or tactile-looking brushwork, that reward close inspection. The overall visual language aligns well with expressive, richly worked non-representational art. These images vary in alignment. The biomechanical fashion and fever dream landscape sets show strong intricacy, rich textures, and surreal layering, which fit very well. The portraits and landscapes incorporate painterly abstraction, but lean toward figurative. The spaceship interiors, while highly polished and stylish, lack the organic chaos and layered detail expected. They're structured more than abstract. Overall, a partial match, strong in some styles, weaker in the architectural sets. Chaotic symmetry. These images represent the concept very well. All four combine mirrored or radial patterns with high-density details, irregular forms, and a sense of visual complexity. Each has strong underlying structure but incorporates unpredictable elements, like scattered shards, busy textures, and abstract geometry. Overall, highly accurate and visually compelling. Most images blend structured repetition with intricate or erratic elements, successfully capturing the theme. The strongest fits are in the Forgotten Civilization and Fever Dream landscape sections, particularly the mirrored faces and surreal landscapes with layered, fractured geometry. The fashion and spaceship sets lean more toward clean symmetry, with less visible chaos. Overall, moderately accurate, with a few standout examples. Perfectly disorganized still life. These compositions hit the mark well. Each scene captures a natural, cluttered arrangement that still feels intentional and aesthetically composed. The objects are varied and scattered, but they balance well in space and form, with good lighting and texture detail that enhances the visual appeal. It's controlled chaos rendered with precision, visually rich and convincingly staged. These images strongly align with the concept. Each scene feels carefully curated yet naturally cluttered, featuring a range of objects arranged with visual rhythm and narrative depth. The disarray enhances interest, rather than detracting, and there's a strong sense of deliberate imperfection. Even in stylized or futuristic settings, the balance between messiness and composition is consistent and effective. Completely random design with calculated intention. This set captures the paradoxical concept very well. Each composition appears abstract or chaotic at first glance, yet a closer look reveals precision, through geometry, symmetry, alignment, or spatial balance. There's a strong sense of structure behind the apparent disorder. The visuals succeed in feeling both spontaneous and thoughtfully arranged. This set blends disorder and structure impressively well. The portraits and environments feature intricate, unpredictable details, fractured textures, layered elements, and surreal forms, yet they're anchored by deliberate symmetry, framing, or architectural balance. Despite their randomness, the elements feel purposeful and intentional. Most interpretations hit the concept solidly, especially the biomechanical and portrait results. Low-quality Ultra HD photo. These images visually contradict the concept. They're extremely sharp, richly colored, and compositionally polished. Each scene looks professionally rendered or captured, with no visual noise, blur, artifacts, or compression typically associated with lower quality. Lighting, depth, and texture are all refined. Overall, they fail to convey the intended degradation or imperfection. These images are visually striking, crisp, and high resolution, with refined lighting, textures, and detail. Every scene is composed with cinematic clarity, vibrant tones, and deliberate styling. There are no signs of visual artifacts, blur, noise, or distortion. As such, they fully miss the intended visual contradiction and instead showcase impeccable quality throughout. Handcrafted AI-generated item. These images embody a strong blend of artisanal detail and digital creativity. The objects look tactile, with realistic textures like wood, leather, moss, and stone, mimicking physical craftsmanship. At the same time, they carry an imaginative, fantastical quality, overly ornate, mystical, or stylized in a way that suggests they couldn't exist outside a digital creation. The result feels convincingly like digital interpretations of handmade items, striking the intended conceptual balance very well. This set partially reflects the intended concept. Some elements, especially the sculptural and textile-like portraits and the fashion designs, evoke a handcrafted, artisanal feel with intricate, physical-looking textures. However, other elements, like the interior scenes and dreamlike landscapes, lean more toward polished digital renderings and lack the tactile imperfection or artisanal focus. Overall, the match is moderate. Stronger where organic, material detail is emphasized, and weaker where the style is more clean or synthetic. And this concludes the experiment. The main thing I learned was that I totally forgot that the -- no parameter exists for Midjourney, and it sure would have resulted in different kinds of results. Telling just in words, "know something" to Midjourney will end up as Midjourney ignoring the no and doing exactly what you didn't want to happen, just like a toddler. So even though Midjourney, or the draft mode for Midjourney that I still have not taken a closer look at, like I promised, doesn't really take into account the natural spoken language, it is still, in my opinion, just picking out the words that it recognizes and going with those. It does not seem to look at the entire prompt as a whole and do that. The biomechanical fashion editorial produced my favorite images. I really liked the futuristic look of the designs. The luxurious spaceship interior was kind of set in its ways. It was affected, very rarely, by the prompts I experimented with. The look stayed the same, or very similar throughout. And nothing was really that ugly. Midjourney does have the kind of prettifying effect on everything, even if you try and make things purposefully ugly. You do need to bring the stylize value down, or add some more parameters to it, like the newly re-added weird parameter. That would have resulted in some very ugly things, probably. I have done a video on the weird parameter when it first came out, so let me know in the comments if you would like me to do a video about it again in the context of Midjourney v7. Or would you rather have me take on some other things? Of course, as usual, I would also like to thank all of my patrons who have really been supporting this channel lately. If you would like to join the support group and get to see my videos a day early and ad-free, along with all of the prompts and images of my videos in a prompt PDF format, then check out the link in the description. And you can always support the channel by liking, subscribing and commenting over here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and let's continue prompting.